Hello everyone, this is Talk Time with Cynthia. I'm coming back again with the black textbook. The black tax, the cost of being black in America, right? Okay. So what I do want to say, and I'm going to say that for every video I post, this is not about racism, okay? No way, form, shape is it about racism. This is about finding out how we got where we are as black people. And this video is not just for black people. This video is for everybody. Because what we're trying to do, we're trying to work on our community, work on our city, work on our state, work on our nation, work on our world. And so I just felt like in order to fix something or attempt to fix something or do my part in fixing something is start from the root of the problem, right? So, how did this happen? Because like when you get in trouble with your parents, usually, okay, so what happened? How did this happen? What'd you do? Right? So that's what we're trying to do here. So without further ado, and I don't want to, put too much talking in. I just want to read so you'll understand what I'm talking about. But I do want to say, I thank you guys so much for tuning in, being interested on what your girl Cint got to say and what I'm doing and what I'm trying to accomplish inside of the world that I love so much, the world that I live in, right? So I say thank you so much, and don't forget to comment, like, subscribe my channel. Don't forget to hit the notification bell. Let them know what your girl Cint is doing, and you hit the notification bell so that you get all my notification when I upload my videos. But don't forget to don't forget to let them know what your girl Cint is doing, cause we try to keep it popping over here on the positive side. And I'm saying all of this up front because some people, they don't listen all the way to my video. So I just want to let those people that doesn't listen to my video to the end, that I love you guys. Even just seeing me and clicking on me and being interested or thinking you're interested in what I have to say, I'm like, thank you so much. That means so much to me. So I appreciate that, And hey, if you're not liking it and you click off of it, you know what? I appreciate the little bit of time that you do spend, okay? So, but I love you guys too, and that's why I put this information out there, because I love us as human beings, and I feel like that we could do better. So anyway, so let me go ahead and start reading, because I'll get on that and I won't get off of it, because that's a whole conversation right there. So okay, so this is part one. The part that I just got done reading with the other two videos is that was the introduction, right? And y'all forgive me because I have allergies like so bad. And look at these pine trees. That's the vein of my not the vein, but the cause of my my allergies. They dropped the yellow pollen in my throat and my nose to go crazy. So you might hear me clear my throat every now and then, okay? So this is part one. That was the introduction, but this is part one. And part one is the current black tax, right? What is a black tax? And I guess a lot of people say, I never knew there was a black tax. So anyway, so the thing is, we're not angry. We need answers, We want to give answers, for people who are curious to, how did they get like that? Why do they do this? Why do they do that? Okay, so we finna let you know. And we're not blaming nobody, but we just need to know where we are so we know where to go, right? And if anybody trying to help, because there are people that is not just standing by saying, negative things or wondering why and not doing nothing. But there's people who literally are trying to help the situation, right? So, what we're gonna do is we're gonna try to get some answers out of the book, right? Okay, it says what is a black tax? Black tax is an additional financial strain or heavy burden placed on Black Americans by people and institutions that have conscious and or unconscious anti-black biases. Or another thing, y'all, I'm Southern, so some of these words they ain't gonna be sounding like they. I'm gonna do my best. That's all I gotta say. It says the key words here are conscious and unconscious, right? This tax is placed on Black Americans because of who their fellow citizens think they are. Who their fellow citizens think they are, right? Which is dominated by a host of well-documented and unfounded negative stereotypes, not who they actually are. This tax greatly reduces Black America's ability to invest in new business development, education, housing, employment, and other activities that lead to wealth accumulation. Now, I will say this. Everybody have their freeloaders in every race. So we're not saying this is for the whole and you understand what I'm saying? But for a lot of us, this is true. That we don't have the opportunities that other people have. So, okay. Then it says, very of 10, the focus is placed on the moral implications of or the discomfort associated with discrimination as opposed to the financial costs associated with it. Because the financial impact of a black tax affects the wealth of Black Americans, it must occupy a place of primary importance. This is why I focus on the effect that this tax has and has had historically on wealth accumulation in the Black community. Another important question is, do Americans really harbor anti-Black sentiments? While we are somewhat familiar with the history of anti-Black biases in America, does it still exist today? If so, does it have a meaningful negative financial impact on Black Americans? In 2012, the Associated Press worked in conjunction with researchers from Stanford University, the University of Michigan, and the University of Chicago, conducted research to understand to what extent Americans have anti-Black biases and how that biases is associated with political affirmation. This question was likely of particular importance because in 2012, America's first Black president was in the midst of his re-election campaign, and the results must have shed some light on how this biases could play out in the election. The results of their research were quite interesting and showed that 51% of Americans express explicit anti-black attitudes, and 56% of Americans express implicit anti-black attitudes. Republicans have the highest explicit and implicit anti-black attitudes, 80% and 64%, respectively, while 32% of Democrats express explicit anti-black attitudes, almost twice as many. 55% expressed implicit anti-black attitudes. This means that Democrats harbor far more anti-black attitudes than they are consciously aware of. Let me try to get my book, y'all. With independents, it was closer to 50-50, which is to say roughly 50% of independents are explicit anti-black biases, and 50% had implicit anti-black biases. I think I was saying the word wrong the whole time. It's implicit. And it says, unfortunately, it appears that anti-black biases basically ranges from high to very high, depending on political affiliation. Here are some results from the study, right? So they did a study. Okay, so one thing I wanted to say, y'all, an ant bit my foot. But I ain't want to say that, but I'm just saying an ant bit my foot. So let me scratch it for a minute. Oh. So anyway, the one thing I wanted to say to y'all, do your own research. Don't take my word for it. I'm giving you the information. Do your own research. Find your own information out for yourself, because I don't want to sit and just feed people or anybody some information that is coming straight from me. Y'all, I'm sorry, my feet, the ant bit me. Because that just wouldn't be fair, right? Expect for people to just take what I say and take it as gospel. And when I say gospel, that means the truth. So you just do your own research. I'm giving you the information, and just do your own research, right? And it says, here are some results from the study. Proportion of Americans expressing explicit anti-black attitudes was 51% in 2012, 48% in 2008, and 47% in 2010. Proportions of Republicans, 78% in 2012. Proportion of Independents, 48 in 2012. And proportions of Democrats, 32% in 2012, right? So Republicans, 79%, Independents, 48%, and Democrats, 32%. So within our own politics, decide that we lean more toward, even have a biases for African Americans. So go figure, right? Okay, so it says Before we go any further, let's talk about what explicit and implicit biases are. Okay? Explicit means that something has been, oh, sorry. Explicit, I'm looking down here because I'm reading, y'all, so I do apologize. Explicit means that something has been clearly expressed with no room for confusion, and they are fully aware of what was said or done. Biases is a systematic error in judgment. For instance, continually thinking a certain type of person is a criminal when they are no more likely to be a criminal than anyone else. Right? And then it says, to determine a person's explicit biases, the researchers would ask that person direct questions about race. For example, do you think that the impact of 250 years of slavery have a negative impact on the current position that Black Americans are in today? That is clearly a question about race. An implicit bias refers to attitudes and or stereotypes that affects our understanding, actions and decisions in an unconscious manner. It is bias you harbor in your unconscious mind that is not accessible to you through introspection and reflection. Okay? It says, because people are not aware of their implicit biases, researchers have developed clever ways to get an understanding of the presence of those biases. They might show their subjects pictures or diagrams that have nothing to do with race and ask how they feel, positively or negatively. But the picture or diagram, about the picture or diagram, but before they show them the non-racial picture or diagram, they will randomly show the person a picture of a black male or a white male and then ask them how they feel about the non-racial diagram. It often turns out that people who have an anti-black biases feel more negatively about the picture, right? After seeing a black male, and more positive about the diagram after seeing a white male. The researcher will do this over and over with different subjects and use statistical methods to figure out the level of bias according to across the sample. Think about it this way. They're asking people how they feel about a picture diagram that has nothing to do with race, but their feelings about those images are affected by their feeling toward the image of a black male or white male. That precedes the image they are actually focused on. When the researchers in this Associated Press study completed their work, they found that almost 6 out of every 10 Americans had anti-black attitudes. Researchers at Harvard University have long studied the effects of implicit biases and created an online implicit associated tests. Excuse me, y'all. To measure biases, attitudes, and beliefs that people are unwilling or unable to report. While taking an implicit associated test for race, a person must categorize good and bad words with images of black and white people. The more quickly the person can associate positive words with white people or black people, the stronger their implicit preference for that group. The race implicit hold on, y'all. Implicit associated test has been taken by over 3.3 million people between 2002 and 2015. And researchers have found that almost 70% of Americans have an implicit preference for white people over black people. The data also shows that only 2% of Americans have a strong implicit preference for black people. This is not surprising given the strong negative stereotypes associated with black people in America society, coupled with a long history of several hundred years of intense racial discrimination. Considering this, the answer to the question, do Americans still harbor anti-black biases, is a resounding yes. The vast majority of Americans harbor high levels of both conscious and unconscious biases against African Americans, since we know that biases, implicit and explicit, can manifest themselves in the actions and decisions making of those who hold them. The next logical step is to understand the extent to which these biases manifest as a tax on black Americans, right? And then, so the next title is going to be Black Tax in the Real Estate Market. So this is still part 1. Okay, it says the American dream includes the goal okay, y'all. So I'm gonna go a little bit over 30 minutes on this one. Okay, So yeah, I'm gonna finish read this one, and then I'm going to our next video. Okay, so the black tax in the real estate market. The American dream includes the goal of home ownership, right? The first step is securing the American dream is to look for a home. Let's see what research says about the African American experience during the home search process. In 2011, a National Association of Realtors study found that the average research for a new home takes about 12 weeks, and during that search, the average person will look at 12 homes. However, if you're black, your search is going to take longer. Okay? And you're going to see fewer homes. The study found that black Americans are told about almost 20% fewer homes, and then are shown about 20% fewer homes are compared to whites. So if a white home buyer is told about 10 homes, a black home buyer will likely be told about 8 and shown even fewer homes. This clearly makes it harder to find your dream home, because if you're not told about a home or shown a home, it won't be under consideration during your buying process. This is not only discriminatory, but it also costs more of your time, which means you have less time for other productive pursuits. While it is clearly a tax on your time, which also reduces your options. It is a tax that is difficult to quantify. Okay, let's assume, that despite the inconvenience of having to allocate more time than your peers to the search process, you've managed to find your dream home and you're ready for the next step, which is seeking financing. The Journal of Urban Economic Publication. The Journal of Urban Economics publication, a study in 2016 that examined the extent to which discrimination still exists in the lending industry for residential real estate. They found that people who inspired about getting mortgage financing who had African American sounding names were less likely to receive a response by mortgage lending organizations. Okay. Than people who had white sounding names. When people who had African American sounding names did receive a response from the mortgage companies, the mortgage lending organization, it was a less trying to say this word, y'all, preferential response than people who had white sounding names. You may be tempted to think that people with black sounding names are had worse credit, and therefore get less of a response, but this was not the case. The potential applicants all had similar credit scores and credit history. Researchers found that the level of discrimination was quite high for a characteristic race that should not matter, related to one that should matter significantly, credit score. Okay, as we discussed in CPR for the soul, credit scores are very important. That simple 3-digit number summarized a person's credit history and is meant to provide a strong indication of whether or not a borrower is likely to repay his or her debts. In fact, 65% of the factors that go into a FICO score characterize the extent to which a person has been paying their debt as required, and the extent that which they are utilizing the credit that has been extended to them. Not only did the folks in the study have similar credit scores, but they also had similar payment histories, utilization rates, how much of their credit they used, the types of credit used, and types of credit. Yet the borrowers with black sounding names were treated quite differently. In fact, the extent of the difference in the treatment between the applicants with white sounding names and black sounding names had the same impact as if the applicants with black sounding names had FICO scores that were 71 points lower. That is a massive difference in credit score and could easily lead to outright denial or substantially higher interest rates over the life on a loan. Can you imagine having good credit yet being treated as if you have poor credit? That is a truly discriminatory and excessive tax. Okay, so that question is not just for black people, it's just for everybody. Just imagine that and how that will make you feel. And it says, and other studies by the Economic Policy Institute also found that black Americans with a 660 FICO score were 3 times more likely to receive a high interest rate mortgage, especially an interest rate that is 1.5% higher than what they should get based on their credit score, right? And it says then white Americans with a 660 FICO score, a 1992 study by the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston has found that even after controlling for financial employment and neighborhood characteristics of Black and Hispanic mortgage applicants in the Boston metropolitan area are roughly 60% more likely to be turned down than whites. This discrepancy means that minority applicants with the same economic and property characteristics as white applicants would experience a denial rate of 17% rather than the actual white denial rate of 11%. Thus, in the end, a statistically significant gap remains, which is associated with race. Okay. So far we've seen that if you're Black, during the process of looking for a home, you're more likely to be told about fewer homes and shown fewer homes. That's number one. Number two, when you inquire about getting a loan and having an African American sounding name, you're more likely to be treated as if your credit worthiness is substantially lower than it is. Number three, after you have submitted your application, you are 60% more likely to be turned down than whites with similar characteristics. Okay. Number four, you're 3 times more likely to receive a higher price loan than your white counterpart with the same credit risk. It seems like a pattern is emerging that shows a significant difference in treatment of and cost to African Americans. If the researchers are correct, then we should be able to find evidence of this tax in the marketplace. Below are examples of some large American banks that were sued by the U.S. Justice Department for discrimination against minority home buyers. Bank of America, which I am a member of Bank of America. I did not know this. Okay. So, it says Bank of America, which is a massive bank, was sued by the Justice Department and ultimately paid $335 million to settle the lawsuit. Bank of America had overcharged 22,000 minority borrowers with higher rates and fees than white customers with the same credit score. This was not an issue of a minority borrower having a lower score and subsequently receiving a higher interest rate, which what one might expect, right? It was a matter of hundreds of thousands of borrowers being given interest rates that were far higher than their otherwise should have been. Than they otherwise should have been. In fact, Bank of America's countrywide financial division steered Black and Latinos borrowers into high-risk subprime loans that draconian rates and I think I said that right. DRACONIAN rates and terms, um, even though they qualified for prime rates. These borrowers wound up paying tens of thousands of dollars more, including upfront costs, than their white counterparts with similar credit score. Okay, then it says Wells Fargo. Another massive bank was also sued by the Justice Department and paid $175 million to settle accusations that this independent brokers its independent brokers discriminated against Black and Hispanic borrowers. Wells Fargo charged 30,000 minority buyers higher interest rates and higher fees associated with borrowing with than white borrowers with the same credit risk. They also steered 4,000 minority borrowers into costly interest rate subprime loans, while white borrowers with the same credit risk were given prime rate loans. In Chicago, Black borrowers paid almost $3,000 more in fees for a $300,000 loan than white borrowers with the same credit risk. Wells Fargo was so aggressive, according to Elizabeth Jacobson, one of the bank's top producing subprime loan officers, that Wells Fargo paid its loan officer 3 to 4 times more for subprime loans than for prime loans. That was number one. Number two had a goal of having the subprime division pay the entire fixed cost for the entire company, and number three specifically targeted Black churches because it figured that Black churches had a lot of influence and could convince congregants to take out subprime loans, right? Now, let's suppose that you completed the home acquisition process and you're now a newly minted homeowner. The majority of your personal and household net worth will be the value of your home. In fact, the vast majority of the net worth of American households come from their homes. This is particularly true of Black Americans, where 64% of their net worth is found real estate holdings, whereas only 39% of white household wealth is driven by real estate holdings. So the value of real estate is vital for African American wealth accumulation. More specifically, the increase in value over time, which is called association. No, it's called appreciation. Sorry, y'all. is vital to African American wealth accumulation. Okay, the difference between what your home is worth and what you own it is called your equity in the home. Equity is the financial value assigned to the portion of the home that you own. A Forbes article written by Dorothy Brown, a professor of tax law at Emory University School of Law, indicated that as the percentage of black people in a neighborhood increases beyond 10%, a gap in appreciation begins and continues as the percentage of black people increases. Even when researchers control for or take into account age, social class, household structure, and geography, the association gap persists and continues to increase as the percentage of black people increases. Researchers from George Washington University found that black homeowners receive 18% less value for their home per dollar of income than white homeowners. Excuse me, y'all. I need some water. And then it says a gap also clearly exists between black and white neighborhoods with equal income levels. And then it says in one survey, researchers found that white reported they will be unlikely to purchase a home in a predominantly black neighborhood, even if it met their requirements in terms of price, rooms, safety, and school system. Another study found that, the presence of African Americans in a neighborhood resulted in a downgrading of its desirability for whites, regardless of economic status of the neighborhood. Yet another found that whites avoid living in neighborhoods with a non-token more than only a. Hold on, y'all. I'm turning the page. Oh, I'm getting bit by ants. More than only a few. Okay, and then it says black. Y'all, something bite me. Boy, that hurt. Y'all, excuse me. So, and then it says, black population, because of the association they make between the presence of blacks and high crime, low housing values, and low quality education. But if these factors were not the case in actuality or in whites' perceptions, whites would continue to be negatively influenced by black neighborhood composition. Okay, y'all, I had to move. Them ants was tearing me up over there. They done ate me up over here, so I'm like, let me get over here. But that just hurt. Seems like a little worse. And then it says, this is not only remarkable, it is also indicative of significant anti-black biases, because even with all of these positive attributes, the mere presence of a substantial representation of African Americans diminishes the desire to live in a neighborhood that has a non-token presence of black Americans. Since 1970, only 2% of white Americans have moved from predominantly white neighborhoods to predominantly black neighborhoods. The collective effect of a group that control over 90% of all wealth in the country to not buy homes in neighborhoods where African Americans live puts a significant negative economic impact on real estate values in almost all black neighborhoods, irrespective of income levels in the country. This impact dramatically reduces the ability of African American homeowners to accumulate wealth and leave a legacy. As you can see, the black tax in the real estate market starts small and somewhat innocuously. This increases dramatically if you are African American. You will likely have to spend more time looking for a home and securing financing. This portion of the tax is the most difficult to quantify because it reduces the amount of time that you have for your family, church, business, and employment. You are also more likely to be denied a loan. If you do receive a loan, you are more likely to be charged higher fees and interest rates than your white peers with similar credit histories. Let's take a look at the numbers. Okay, so suppose you purchased a home for $450,000. Since you are 3 times more likely to receive a loan with higher interest than is actually consistent with your credit worthiness, you could receive an interest rate that could cost you an additional $140,000 over the life of the loan. If you are also charged higher fees, $3,000 using the Wells Fargo model, that could cost you an additional $13,000 over the life of the loan. And if you purchased your home in a neighborhood with a black population above 10%, and most black Americans live in such neighborhood, you could end up with your home being worth 18% less than it otherwise would be, due to the appreciation gap that could amount to 190,000 after 30 years. Cumulatively, it's possible to pay a black tax that could cost you an additional $345,000 on the purchase of your home, which is truly extraordinary if you think about the impact of the appreciation gap on African Americans. The tax becomes massive. African Americans own an estimated 1.4 trillion of real estate, and the vast majority of the real estate is in communities where African Americans are more than 10% of the population. This means that Black Americans could, in total, have 317 billion less real estate value than they otherwise should. This is a truly massive and crippling tax on black people, and certainly underscores the need for Black Americans to bank with black financial institutions to avoid the discriminatory effects of institutions that have long had conscious or unconscious predatory relationships with the black community. Okay, so y'all, that was the end of that. It lasted longer than I thought, and I apologize for that, but it's good information, so I went ahead and read on into it. So anyway, I wanted to say thank you guys so much for hanging out with me once again, and I appreciate you guys so much, and I love you to pieces from the bottom of my heart. I love you guys. And I appreciate you, and sometimes I use you guys as a lifeline, and hopefully you do the same for me. I don't want it to go on one way. I want it to go both ways. But I say thank you so much, and I just want to say, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to let your family and friends know what your girl Cent is doing, because we try to keep it popping over here on the positive side. Y'all know how we do. And also, don't forget to hit the notification bell so you'll know when I upload my videos or whatever, so you don't have to wonder, what's going on? Why can't you upload some more videos? And I know this one right here has been a while, but girl, this corona ain't no joke. I ain't had it, but I'm telling you, this staying at home and not being able to get out and stuff, which I'm not a person that get out a whole lot, but when you kind of get stifled in doing what you normally do, it's sometimes it's not that easy. But anyway, I love you guys, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.